Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be probably the shortest recap and previewing a game episode I've ever done. For a couple of reasons that you'll see as we kind of get into it. This is going to be more of like a full-on rant for however long it takes. More than it's going to be a recap and more than it's going to be a preview. I'm not diving into the numbers. I'm not doing a lot of that. I'm just going to talk about what we all are thinking right now. And we'll just see how it goes from there. Hey, I appreciate you guys being here. If you are listening to this, make sure you guys follow us on all the socials at Dog Talk 20. I would greatly appreciate that. If you guys want to support the show, there is a link in the description you can click as well. All right. Talk a little bit about Mississippi State for just a second. This is a game, I'm going to be honest with you. Even to this point, even as we get close to the end of the week here, I still have not watched every single snap of this football game. I still have not watched all of this game. And here's the reality of it. I shouldn't need to. As a Georgia fan, I love the Georgia Bulldogs. All there is to it, right? All there is to it. But when you have other things that are going on in life, and Georgia is playing a much, much inferior team in Mississippi State this season, I'm going to preface that. Mississippi State's not always the worst team in the SEC, but this season is a little different. And you should be okay to miss 90% of this football game and not have to worry about anything. Now, in the end, did I worry about this game? No. Even when I would look and occasionally check a score to this game, was I worried? No. At one point, what this game was like, 34-10? All right, things are going well. We're looking all right. We're doing about what I thought we would do. And not to finish the way that this game finished. 41-31, 40-31. Be honest with you, I don't even know what the exact final score is, and I'm not looking at it in front of me. Again, because I shouldn't have to. The Georgia team that came into this season is not the Georgia team that we're looking at today. Are we beat up in some spots? Yeah, absolutely. Georgia Bulldogs should be known as a team, and have been known as a team over the last couple of years, that doesn't affect us. That isn't something that we have to worry about as much. Is depth an issue occasionally? Yeah. It comes up. But this should not be a factor when you're playing this Mississippi State team that we play. I shouldn't have to watch every snap if I'm doing something else. This should have been like a second half of the TCU Georgia National Championship game a couple of years ago, where I look at the screen every so often because you get so bored in the second half wondering what in the world is going on. I'm saying this as a fan who's not at the game. If you're at the game, listen, first of all, if I'm paying the money that it costs to go to a game, I'm not leaving. I'm not doing like some of these other fans, some of these other students, things like that are leaving early. I get it, with Auburn. It's a homecoming game, whatever. But I'm not leaving. I'm staying until the end of the game. I'm staying until the 4 zeros clicked across 4 zeros clicking across the clock up there before I even get up out of my seat to think about leaving the stadium. But if I'm not at the game and I'm watching it, every so often, or maybe turn ahead to it, or whatever you're doing for the rest of your life. This should be a game, much like a Tennessee Tech, much like a UMass game, that you shouldn't have to watch all of it to get the gist of what happened. To get the gist of, hey, Georgia played Georgia football and did what they were supposed to do to what Mississippi State has been doing this season. Mississippi State gave Texas a run for their money to start the football game when they played earlier in the season. But then Texas did what you're supposed to do with a team like that. Put them away. That's all there is to it. Georgia, on the other hand, didn't quite do that. Scored a lot of points, but gave up more points than I think I've ever understood. Again, I haven't watched it all, so I can't say a lot. Much like those games where if you're not watching and you see a final score really doesn't replicate what that game actually was, a la, Georgia, South Carolina last year, early in the season, a la a USF and Alabama earlier this season, where 3 3/4 of that football game were very close, and then it wasn't. And Georgia, South Carolina last year, the first half of that football game, Georgia's not leading. The third quarter, Georgia that came out was a steaming red-hot ball of fire that came out, and if you looked at the scoreboard, you went, oh, that was a pretty close game, but it did not tell the story if you didn't watch the first half. This is a different one. Georgia had the game put away, and just defensively, for whatever reason, again, I haven't watched it all. I'll stop saying that now. It's a broken record, Holden. We get it. we shouldn't give up 31 points to Mississippi State. I don't care who's on the field. If it's second, third string, we shouldn't be giving up 31 points to Mississippi State. That's all there is to it. I've seen enough to say, okay, I know that we've made some mistakes, but I've also heard some of the press conferences too to say, all right, we're making stupid mistakes too. We're having stupid penalties out there that we shouldn't be having. It's got a lot to do with it too. I just say that to say, this should not have been that close of a football game. Really shouldn't have. Again, you got injuries. That's part of it. And this is kind of where I lead away with this. And I think I said a little bit this last week, kind of coming into this game. Georgia has got to find its leaders and its guys that are going to step up. And I think we're starting to see hints of that. I'm going to give a lot of credit right here to Carson Beck because the dude threw for record yardages, I believe, for his career, but also I think record completion if it wasn't record attempts. I mean, throwing the ball for almost 50 times in a football game is almost unprecedented for a Georgia quarterback in I don't know how many years, if not a very long time. I don't know the last time I saw a quarterback for Georgia throw that many times. Maybe going back to like a 2017 Jake Fromm national championship game. I don't really know. It'd take me a minute to kind of go back and dive into that. Probably could ask Eric Taylor over there at the Bulldog Report, and he could probably bring it up for us really quick. But we need these guys that are stepping up to really step up and be those leaders. We don't have the guys, like I said last week, we don't have the guys who are just the guys. We don't have the guys that when you line up across from, they're afraid of you. And some of this is because it's all over college football. It's not Georgia. It's not just Georgia, I should say. There's a lot of other teams out there that now when you line up across from them, they're not afraid to play you. I lie in Alabama, Vandy. I lie Vandy playing Kentucky after that. Shout out to Vandy in this one. I'm give them their kudos because they're playing great football right now. And I'm not saying Georgia's not. I'm just saying we're not playing to the caliber that we're used to seeing Georgia play. And it's weird. And I know earlier in the season I said, hey, we need to enjoy it. And I'm enjoying it. Don't get me wrong. I love that Georgia is the team that I follow. And even though we might not look like we have in years past, I still love what we've gone through, what we've done and accomplished over the last couple of years. Do I think Georgia's going anywhere? No, I don't. Kirby Smart said that years ago, and he was true, and he was right. And that's the exact same thing that we're talking about today. Georgia's not going anywhere. Even if this isn't the greatest season in the world, not going anywhere. But you still want to see these guys step up and fight and act like, hey, the guy across from me, I want to make him scared to play me. I want him to line up across from me and say, I don't know what's coming, and I'm not ready for it. But I'm going to do what I can, right? And that leads me right into this Texas preview right here. Because Georgia has to find itself in this game. This is the time. You know what we haven't seen from Georgia at all this season? And this is the only thing I think I'm more tired of over a lot of things. Is Georgia has yet, we're halfway through the season, Georgia has yet to have played its perfect game. You know, every week it feels like I kind of come on here and we talk about some of the good stuff, but then we really criticize some of the stuff that it's like, man, Georgia, you know, we just keep doing this. Oh, we're not very quick in the first half. Oh, we score 1,000,000 points in the second half, but we can't do anything in the first half. And part of me is that little bit of, yeah, I still kind of fuss about the part of us that's not doing good. And I think that's a lot of what we do as media members. I think that's a lot of what we do as fans, that we really harp on the bad stuff and we don't appreciate the good stuff enough. So when the good stuff does come, you know, you don't really know what to do with it. But I think it's time. It's beyond time, to be honest with you, this season, for Georgia to play its perfect football game, where Georgia comes out there and they play like the team that everybody remembered was coming into this season. They play like the team that everybody went, you're not beating Georgia this year. Georgia's mad from last year, and I know you can't take the baggage from last year and try to bring it to this year, but I do. As a fan, we do, because we know what happened last season. Kirby Smart can tell his football team everything he wants to tell them about. It doesn't matter. Last week doesn't matter. Next week doesn't matter. It's about this week. Yeah, absolutely right. But for us as fans, I'm looking back in the past going, we gotta resurrect what happened then. And we didn't do it this season. We haven't done that. We lost an SEC championship game to a team. Guess what? They beat us this season already. Moving on. Got to move on from that. But we have yet to have played that perfect football game where we look back and go, man, that's the Georgia team I thought that we would have on the field this year. That's the team right there. Very, very, very few mistakes, if any. And at this point, you can't make mistakes. Penalties is one thing. You're going to get called for penalties here and there. Sometimes a little wishy-washy whether they're true or not. But mistakes as far as turnovers and things of that nature cannot happen. Georgia's not getting defensively. Georgia's not getting the turnovers we're used to getting. We're giving them up like almost more. It feels like this season than others, but I know that's not true. I know in years past, a couple of years especially, it seems like we fumbled every single game. That was probably the worst thing. But defensively, we're not getting those turnovers. So that's part of it. That's part of it there. We just have yet to make and have that perfect game where Georgia just shows up and shows you the team. You know what I kind of think of it as like this. I feel like this is the chance where Georgia can finally come out in this football game against Texas. You're about to play the number one team in the country. You are the underdog for the first time in, what did they say, 50 games? I mean, forever. You are the underdog. You're going into somebody else's territory. They're the number one team in the country. You're playing at night. You got it all stacked against you. You've done it once before. You did it once earlier in this season, and you waited until the second half to play football, and it was too late to do that. Granted, you come all the way back, but then you quit right there at the end defensively and just let guys run by you. We can't tackle. We got a lot of stuff we got to work on. I don't have to as a fan. I don't have to as a guy just making a podcast. I just get to talk about it. And that's the unfortunate side for the players is, hey, we talk about the bad stuff. But I want this to change this week. I want after this week we look and we go, man, look at what Georgia did this week. I want it to be like if you guys have ever seen what is a Major League where Vince Vaughn comes out as Wild Thing and the fan that's been in the stands, he's been heckling him this whole time because he comes this kind of tidied up businessman and all of a sudden Wild Thing is back. And he comes running down acting like he never was against him for a little while and he's like, he's back. That's what I envision. That's what I want to see Georgia come out as, where we all come back and we go, oh yeah, and the media members across the country go, oh yeah, and the fans across the country go, oh yeah, that's the Georgia team we thought was coming into this season. That's the Georgia team we were all afraid of, and they're back. Here's the team that we thought was going to be on the field this season, and they're back. And you do that by coming into this game against Texas, playing lights out, playing that perfect football game that you haven't played all season, that we've all been waiting on, that we've all been looking to see, mistake-free football, and kicking the teeth out of the number one team in the country and showing them the football that we have been accustomed to playing the past couple of years. Finally fighting for something that we should have been a part of last year, because this all of a sudden starts to look, and many people are talking about it, that if Georgia loses this football game, hey, you don't even get a chance to get in the playoff this year, and it's an expanded playoff, something that we've said before, that you lose a game or two here, you're probably still in. Now you're on the outside looking in. You're not playing for an SEC championship more than likely. Now, it's crazy weeks of football here lately, so who knows what could happen between now and then. But all of a sudden, you slide down the totem pole, and you're looking up going, man, I hope I get a chance to get in there. But you can control your own destiny coming into this week. You can do what nobody expects you to do because we've seen what's happened so far in the season. Georgia hasn't had that football game. They haven't had that football game that you shut the other team up. You hadn't had that football game that everybody goes, wow, I don't want to play them guys. Nobody's afraid of you. And again, some of this is because I think the competition is getting spread so much throughout the country now. Some of this because of obviously the transfer portal. Maybe some of this has something to do with NIL because enough players are able to go to different places and it kind of spreads it out a little bit. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Maybe some of it's because these guys just, maybe NIL has more to do with it on the other side of it where it's like, I've decided I'm not going to play. There's a couple of guys that are taking red shirts and not playing instead of playing because, hey, they see they can transfer, or hey, I'm not getting this or I'm not getting that. I'll just bow out. There is a little bit of that happening too. I'm not saying that's happening with the University of Georgia. I'm just talking in country in general. A lot of wild and crazy things have been going on. So I'm not saying Georgia couldn't get there by losing this game, but I don't want to see that. I'm to the point now where I'm like, all right, it's time to play the football that we've grown accustomed to playing. You won back-to-back national championships a couple of years ago. Had the chance to go back last year. Couldn't do it when it mattered most. Didn't get the opportunity to do it. There should still be some fire left under these guys who were a part of that team to say, I'm not going out that way again. We're not doing this. We're about to show you the football that we know how to play. We're about to show you the football that we are Georgia. We are the team who came in as number one for a reason. It wasn't a hoax that we were up there. Now we got to come out here and prove it. You're the underdog. You got it all stacked against you. You get to come out this week and prove that to everybody because nobody expects it. Nobody expects any of that from you coming into this football game. So that's it. Again, just a little ranting, little raving. I'm not talking about other games around the country. There were some good ones last week that came in. Oregon, Ohio State, great football game. Good football to watch. A lot of people say, hey, Ohio State didn't play really well, and Oregon played great. Hey, Dan Lanning, that's a guy you kind of miss on Georgia right now. Mainly because defensively, we have got to get better. We've got to do things better. We've got to tackle, and that secondary has got to step up in a big way against Texas, or it's going to be a rough night. And I don't mean rough just because we're the Dogs. I mean because we got a lot to get figured out by the time we get to Saturday. And I think the Dogs can do that. Again, I want to be that dude in the stands. I wish I could remember his name and even the character name and tell you exactly who it was. But when Vince Vaughn comes back as Wild Thing, that he comes out in that same way and says, you know what, he's back, and I'm excited about it. That's what I want to do come Saturday. I want to say, there's the Dogs we've been looking for all season, and see that perfect football game that Georgia finally puts together, where it's not a slow start, where it's not a bunch of mistakes, where we know how to tackle, we know how to execute, and we play the football Georgia has become accustomed to coming into this season. That's what I want to see on Saturday. I'm looking forward to that. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all the things at DogTalk20. I'll check in with you guys after the game. Good on.